Okay, so Dr. Sauer, can you tell me a bit about your life growing up?
Well, I grew up on a farm for the first 13 years, and my dad decided that the kids better get an education, so we moved into town, and he sacrificed his love of farming for that. Grew up in the Fox Valley area, which is really a small town of about 500, 600 people, and I decided when I was in high school that I wanted to be a teacher. So I moved on to Teachers College in 1950, and just when I graduated, I was about 18 years of age. I come out as a teacher, 1 year of training, and my first year, 19 years of age, went to a small rural school, 9 different grades. So we taught everything there, the 1-2s together, the 3-4s together, and so on. And had a good time there for 2 years before I moved on up across the river to Kindersley, in the Kindersley School Unit, to Etonia, where I taught for 5 years. Then I found out that some of the teachers with degrees were making twice as much as I did, so I decided to go to university, which I did. Went in there and I got 2 degrees, my kinesiology degree and my education degree. And then I got a job in Saskatoon. So at a big high school, a brand new high school was opened up. Was in there for 6 years, got my master's while I was at night and in summertime. Moved over as a vice principal to Aidan-Bowman Collegiate, just down the road. Was there for a couple of years, actually 4 years. And a superintendent from Lethbridge came into Saskatoon and scouted me. He scouted me by saying he wanted me to come to Lethbridge, apply to Lethbridge. So I applied. Sure enough, got the job there. There for 3.5. Again, I got a deal with the Lethbridge School District where they allowed me to go get my doctorate. And I'm just finishing my doctorate in 1974, and this job as superintendent of the schools in Medicine Hat came open. So I jumped at that, applied, interviewed, and got it. And so that was the same year I got my doctorate. I got over here in 1974, and so I spent 14 years as school superintendent for Medicine Hat Public School District 76.
Wow. So what made you choose education as a career?
Well, I tell you what, I would have liked to have been a doctor. Even though I got a doctorate, this is a doctorate in education. But my parents couldn't afford a long-term investment in terms of going there for 4, 6, 7 years to become a medical doctor and then intern and everything else along the way. So I chose this, and it wasn't bad because I've always liked working with kids and with other people, so it didn't matter. If I had been a medical doctor, I probably would have been narrowed down to the patient in front of me. This way here, I got to know thousands of students and thousands of teachers and had a good time. Still, by the way, I enjoyed the education, every bit of it, right till the time I quit. Still do, by the way. Work on the foundation, and I still go back and work with them.
So why did you want to be a medical doctor at first?
Well, it was somehow or other, it just seemed to be that you could be doing something for people who were suffering from something. And I don't know whether it's esoteric or whether or not it was just a kind of a desire I had that I would get into doing something like that would help people have healthy bodies and cure some disease. In fact, I even thought maybe sometime I might come up with a cure for a disease that somebody had never thought of before.
It's been said that you have an unyielding drive to strengthen your own education. Why do you have that?
I don't know. I've been a curious person. Some people say nosy sometimes. I have an inquiring mind. In other words, I read anything on the internet I can find. I read Maclean's magazine from cover to cover. I read the Medicine Hat News from cover to cover. When I was at the school district, we got the Calgary Paper Herald and the Edmonton Journal and the Medicine Hat News. So I read all 3 of them early in the morning at 7 o'clock. So I was up to snuff for what was happening across the province. And as I work, by the way, I'm interested in government. I was an alderman here, and of course at the provincial level. I'm curious what's happening at the provincial level. I'm curious what happens at the federal level. And maybe it's because I was a teacher of social studies. And I wanted to instill a kind of an inquiring knowledge, question things, find out what's going on so you have a real good background when you argue something or you want to explain something. So maybe that came across because of that social studies teacher instinct.
So if you were still an alderman, would you do anything differently?
Probably not, but I would probably be a different alderman than what we have today. And that's no disrespect to anybody. But the 24 years I spent as an alderman, we had what I call a real close working group every term. And everything just worked smoothly because we We thought things through, we had a good rationale for them, and I think we tried very hard to make the best decisions for the population. And I always thought about that as myself as an alderman. What would an ordinary citizen, Joe Smith, on the street want to happen here? And I always felt pretty good about how the progress we made and the decisions we made and how we helped Medicine Hat being a better community in which to live.
So how would you say you differ from the current councillors?
Well, their philosophy is much different than mine. And maybe it's because I had all that background in terms of a social studies teacher and being comfortable with the provincial government politics and also with the government politics at the federal level. Don't forget, when I was an alderman, I became involved with the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, and I became their president and past president, and now I'm a life member. So I had a different perspective about what happens in municipalities across the province of Alberta, not only a local type of a thing. So I was, let me say I was more broad-minded, if I can say it that way, thinking of other communities just because were lucky enough to have the gas utility, which no one else had, and then we had the gas for the electric utility. I know there's a lot of envy across this province, and I never pushed that envy away type of thing. Just let them say, okay, fine, we were unique, we did things differently down here, and we're better off for it. Different kinds of facilities and things like that other people would have had to really work hard to get. We were able to get it too. We worked hard, but it was a different way to fund it, and we always seemed to have some extra funds for it.
Did you ever run for mayor?
No, I didn't, and I'll tell you why. Because Ted Grimm, who was the mayor when I was, well, first of all, Milt Reinhardt, but then Ted and I grew up together in the same Fox Valley community, and he and I had the same philosophy, so I didn't want to run any time that he ran. And then when he quit in 2001, and I did too, I decided that was enough. Giving a quarter century to local politics, I thought was a significant input and a significant commitment. So then I was out of it, and the desire hasn't come back, although there have been a lot of people, every time there's an election, they ask me if I wouldn't want to run for mayor. And I do have the energy, and I have all the other things, and I think I could be an efficient and effective mayor too. But let someone else do that, and I'll just sit back and watch them.
Well, did you ever consider running for provincial or federal office?
Yes, I did. Back in 1984, when Bert Hargrave, the Member of Parliament, retired, I actually put my name in the hat, and there were 5 of us running for that particular position of MP, and surprisingly, that was for the Conservatives, and surprisingly enough, we had the largest nominating convention across Canada that year. Over 4,100 people voted. I didn't win, and that was fine, but Bob Porter was an excellent candidate, excellent MP, and I have no problem with losing, but we did try, and I tell you what, I'd like to write a book of the experiences of traveling across this constituency. It is a large one, and the fellow that worked with me, Jim Pratt, unfortunately has passed away, but I tell you what, we had the most interesting conversations, because he used to work for IXL Brick, and every time we came into a community, he said, oh, I sold a brick for that building, or I did something over there. And so I had a real good time in campaigning, real good time, and I find that really interesting to look back at.
So you've been involved in the community in a wide variety of capacities. Why have you spent or devoted so much of your life to the community?
Well, I tell you what, I've always, wherever I've been, whether it's Saskatoon or Lethbridge or Medicine Hat, I always feel that a person who earns his pay from taxpayer dollars or whatever type of thing, or even otherwise, if you're in a community, you should commit yourself to making it a better place in which to live. And I've always thought that helping the quality of life, having facilities for sports, for example, having something like culture for culture, and making sure that the educational institutions in this community are good, that's been a driving force for me. And I really believe that's important, that one just gives of his time and his efforts to make it a better place. And I believe we've gained from it, not because of me, but alone, because there's a lot of people who think the same way. And so I've got together with them. We have a group there of probably 3 dozen people who feel the same way, and we just work to make Medicine Hat a better place.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
You're welcome. Yeah.